Had a meeting with Congressman. First off, where you are in Fullerton here, it was Ed Royce, Republican, longtime Republican, has been thrown out, and we can be grateful that happened. So now we have a Democratic district right where you are here in Fullerton. Back in 1967 was the Six-Day War, and a U.S.-American ship called the USS Liberty intelligence ship. 34 Americans were killed by Israelis. I had a meeting with my Congressman Alan Lowenthal, and before the meeting I asked for research. I said, from the USS Liberty Veterans Association, what do you need the Congress to do? They said, well, there's never been an investigation of this, and it's required under the law, and it's never happened. We need one member of Congress, only one member of Congress, to write a letter to the Congressional Research Service asking one question. Has the U.S. government ever investigated the incident of the USS Liberty? My congressman is dragging his feet on that, and I just would hope maybe you and your staff could do a letter. I can send you the information, but let's get one letter out to the Congressional Research Service. And I applaud you for all your
Is your goal to hold them accountable?
Well, it was a cover-up that's gone on from 1967 to now, which is the Israelis deliberately attacked our American ship during the Six-Day War, and it's not right.
Yeah.
And we need this letter to go from one member of Congress. So if I can't get Alan Lowenthal to do it, I hope you'll do it. And the second thing I brought up to him is, we need a caucus in the Congress on peace and justice in Palestine/Israel that's separate from the House International Relations Committee. Just a caucus of you and the people that are sponsoring H.R. 2407. Would you be in favor of having a congressional caucus, and then each member of that caucus, however many there are, 30 of them or 20, contribute a little bit of money so they can hire some staff, so we can have some staff working on peace and justice in the region, because the House International Relations Committee is not going to do it.
So Congressional Progressive Caucus is where everybody's putting a lot of their resources. Aren't the majority of the members of the Congressional Progressive Caucus signed on to that bill?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure.
Well,
So we now started a Congressional it's the Institute for the CPC now. It's fully staffed, I believe, and has its own research division and all that kind of
but
stuff.
if we
And
could
the
have one on
caucus can
Palestine
actually
and
even,
Israel.
yeah. So I can talk to them about it.
Okay.
One thing I want to warn all of you, history is extremely important, absolutely. And I'm Palestinian American, very proud. I know a lot of the history. But when a number of my colleagues are coming up to me and asking me what occupation means, we got a problem. Why? No, we shouldn't let, you know why it is? Because they don't know. They didn't run on it, they don't know international, they don't know. Don't start talking about 67 and 48, they don't know. I had one other colleague ask me what the blockade in Gaza really was about. Like, what is it? Nothing comes in and out. So I'm asking all of you, try to come from a perspective of what's happening through values, inequality, segregation, people can't work everywhere, discrimination, like different color license plates, the fact that people don't have access to a due process to making sure they can keep their homes from getting demolished, or children are not getting equity in education, whatever it is to show, because that bill to me humanizes, and I tell Betty McCollum all the time, you helped humanize detention of children, not only in Palestine, but around the world. And that's what I love about this bill, is connectivity. It connects to all children, not just Palestine, even though they've made it about that. It is connecting to the fact that we don't want to use any U.S. tax dollars to detain children, period. It's something that as you talk about this issue, if it is about accountability to a very much racist, right-wing government in Israel, which I publicly have called it that. They literally have a prime minister that has ran on anti-Arab sentiment, congratulated our president, the first one to congratulate him on the wall. This is a person that supports this form of hate, these values that I don't think meet up. The majority of American people do not believe in those values. And so make it about those specific things versus, again, trying to connect to basic principles and values that I think people would understand. And humanizing. I think when I talk about being there as a little girl, going through the checkpoint with my grandmother and my city and my mom, I remember it. It's so dehumanizing how you're treated and this whole process that you go through. And so I'm asking all of you, if it is about accountability for this current, regime and everything, by the way, I was told consistently that everybody knows the Israeli government is spying on American people. No, it's public. No, it's public knowledge. No, it's public knowledge. Put me on Fox and Friends, bring it. If Congressman Joaquin Castro and many other folks say that's exactly what's happening, that's exactly what's happening. These are people that are in Intelligence Committee and folks. They're all getting briefed about this stuff. And so there are, a lot of issues there, and I think people are not being honest brokers or just being honest about it. And this, you can do this. We can absolutely do this without demonizing Israelis. We can do this by holding governments that run these countries accountable.
Right.
Just like I don't want to be demonized for whatever Trump does. I want to focus on those that don't want peace, that just want divisiveness, that wants all these things. If you have a person that's going to continue building settlements and continue, literally running your campaign on, we're going to take out the Arabs. This is what I'm talking about. So I just think for us as Americans, we need to talk about it in that perspective. And I completely agree with you in creating caucus and try to do all these things. I just have to figure out my capacity, I'm be honest, and figure out because the 4 neighborhood service centers and what I do in a 3rd Forest Congressional District is so important to me, and that's the center of what I do. But I do connect what I'm doing sometimes to what's going on. Part of Blacks for Palestine in Detroit, I do a lot of that engagement and trying to connect that what's happening to my Black neighbors and what's happening to the oppression of Palestinians. So I just want you to know that happens. But to start moving my colleagues in this direction when they don't know what occupation means is really and that's the thing, I'm trying to use humor and other things to make sure my door is open to them to ask me questions. Secretly, many are very, very happy that many of us are there because they've been tired of being bullied into a direction and feeling a sense that they're alone. And many people there are finally feeling like, okay, I do have an issue with the current policies there. The way Black Israelis are treated in Israel is awful. Mm-hmm. It's degrading, it's awful. And so we need to talk about those things, and we need to be very frank and open and honest about it. So yeah, I just want to put that out there, and I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other questions?
Can you,
Yeah.
no, okay, go ahead.
Oh, yes, I was wondering, what can be done, what is being done about the children at the border, about the families disunited at the border? What can the normal person do? I know we can send money, but gosh, there would be people who would be willing to take these families in and be responsible for them, or there'd be lots of people who would be willing to step up.
One, I think it's very important that our government stop separating children from their parents, period. I am not, I can't imagine being that mother, and I won't, I don't want to support taking the children and putting them in homes of strangers and people they should belong and stay with their families. Took them to court 3 times.
I mean the families. Take the families.
Took them to court 3 times, this administration, because even though when the courts kept telling them to stop doing it, they kept doing it. And I truly believe until somebody proves me otherwise, I feel like they're continuing going to do it. Yeah. The fact of the matter is we have laws currently that allow the families to stay together and allow them, if they have family here, to go settle family. Majority of them actually have family and some connection here already. And so they're just not following the current law. They're not following the process. They're ignoring it. They're ignoring congressional subpoenas. We've already held many members in contempt of his cabinet and House Oversight Committee. We've had so many hearings, even currently 2 hearings already in House Oversight, just on medical deferment. They were going to deport people that medically could not get care in their native country and everything. These are the things that we're doing. This is, to me, abuse of power. Again, acting above the law, not following the process that is currently there. These are real. Applying for asylum is legal. And so what you can do is push people to understand there's urgency of doing something about stopping the separation and going back to keeping families together and following the process before. You don't let people believe that there's some sort of system out there that's people don't want to follow. No, it's broken. The immigration system is so deteriorated and so broken. I can't explain to you all, like, there is no line. There is no real process. It's taking decades, years. And some of the, even the processes of criminalization, like even if you marry, you can marry a number of US citizens, don't matter. You can't adjust your status here. Some even with their statuses and switching, again, doing it the process, are taking the time, are hitting these like bars, 3-year bars and permanent bars and all these other things that I feel like are there just to hurt immigrants. Even though they're trying to follow a process, it's a process, it just doesn't work for what's going on right now with our immigration system. So, I mean, I can ask you all to just continue to try to push back against our own government not following the law. I mean, they are violating current law. Like, do we need to pass new law? No. They're violating current law. Do we need to fix our immigration system? Absolutely. But in the meantime, follow the court order. Do what, do what's right. And support, impeachment, y'all, because it's racist. Folks want to focus on the Ukraine call? Fine. You focus on the bribery, extortion? Great. Okay, fine. Do that. But my God, before that happened, there was all this other stuff.
Yes.
No, but that is impeachable offenses. Don't let anybody make you believe it's not.
Yeah.
Now, I'm for whatever gets us to 218. Okay?
Right.
But in the meantime, that should not stop you all from talking about the racist abuse of power. And I say this to you all because it is real. From the census, citizenship question on the census, to all of that, it is real abusive power. So I just want you all to know, like, really try to speak up and be very frank and open about it.
First of all, thank you very much for doing a great job in United States Congress and representing average American. Now, you guys will be voting on article of impeachment before Christmas. But what about this? Hopefully. But if it gets to Senate, it doesn't seem like it's going to go through.
Yeah, Watergate class did not pass impeachment, or articles of impeachment, thinking they had the votes in the Senate. I'm going to say this again. We do our job. Right. We passed Fight for One Fair Wage. We passed One Fair Wage, Equality Act, DREAM Act. We passed all this. Did we have the votes in the Senate? Do we have the votes for the Senate for the background checks for guns? We didn't. We did what was right. We sent over 200 bills to the United States Senate that is just sitting there, including budget bills. We had to pass a CR bill to continue keeping government open because they haven't set back the budgets. So we're doing our job on our end. And listen, if you've ever watched Law and Order, this is how I'm going to explain to you all. Law and Order, the beginning of the half of the show, our prosecutors hate Law and Order because they're like, that's not how justice is done in 45 minutes. But the first part of that Law and Order episode, right, is the actual crime and the investigation of the crime. The second half is the actual jury, the procedure, the court process. That's the Senate. Believe me when I tell you, as long as I think we're doing our part in getting all that information and sending it to the Senate, it is going to be on them whether or not they want to look away. And let it be on them. Right. They want to look away on the gun crisis, let it be on them. If they want to look away on the importance of the DREAM Act, then let them do. Look away on all of, one fair wage we've been fighting for 7 years in our country. There is more, so we got bipartisan support for that one. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Look it up. We got bipartisan support for Equality Act. It's just sitting there in the Senate with no movement. Okay, so I just want to reinforce to you all, that's not, if you start thinking that way too much, then you're going to always end up being paralyzed, then you do nothing. Because that's what you're asking us to do, is do nothing. Because if we don't have the votes in the Senate, then we're not going to do anything. No, we're going to continue passing the bills, we're going to continue holding them accountable, do our job, send the articles of impeachment, and not look away when a president bribed a foreign government for his self-interest. And so that all is going to go to the Senate. Let them be able to address the American people and say they don't want to do anything about it.
So that's what that meant, that if senators are stuck to, they do not want to impeach him, what an average American can do to put the pressure on the senators to make sure that it goes through and all other bills.
Everything. I had 10 million signatures on a petition about holding this president accountable that Move On did. That they delivered that to me. This is the largest number of signatures they've ever gotten historically. Well, all that can go, you can focus on the Senate, focus on 100 people versus 435. So that's what I'm asking you all to do. Get it to the Senate. let them answer the call of the people, because we're gonna do our part and follow the process and do our due diligence. My God, to sit back, we're in court. You know that, right? We're in court to get his taxes released, because everybody's like, what do you do about that? We're in court trying to push back against we're in court saying you gotta follow congressional subpoenas. We're in court trying to make him do his job and hold up the United States Constitution, the oath that he took. We're in court. And we're having impeachment hearings and proceedings on a whistleblower complaint we got. You want us to ignore that? Crazy, we can't ignore that. We gotta do our job and our duty, and we're gonna send it to the Senate and let them address it, answer to the American people after that. Yes?
So I've been, before I've been to the checkpoint. How did it feel when you're going through the checkpoint?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things you should know is, in 1990, I went to all Detroit public schools. In my high school, in 1990 to 1994, Detroit public schools decided that they were not going to do traditional history of America. They were going to do real history, African American history. And we learned only just about through the lens of African Americans and through that history. And it has changed completely changed my life. And so when I was about 19 years old, and going through the checkpoint with my uncle and my sippy, them getting in a separate line, them separating, I was so scared, they separated my uncle away from us, took him into a different room to interrogate him, separately, yep. And then just kept passing, even though I was an American citizen, didn't matter. And all we wanted to do is go Salih Jama at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's it. And you can see your grandmother, your grandmother's very relaxed, how you know your family members. Her body language changed, she gets tense, she's afraid, she almost shrinks in her own body as she tries to go through it. It's dehumanizing. She feels like an animal. She feels like she's not a person. Like all of a sudden, her life, her well-being, everything is in the hands of an oppressive government, right? And so it's awful to watch as a little girl, because I watched as a little girl, you can see, you can sense it, even when your parents are upset, when they're fighting, they're like, we're not fighting, they're fighting. So it's that kind of feeling that happens, I think, for me when I see my city go through that.
When let me ask a question. I want to ask about Armenia, because this came up recently and I didn't understand it. The House overwhelmingly voted for a recognition of the Armenian genocide, and somehow one knucklehead in the Senate got to kill this resolution or something. I didn't really understand what was going on. Can you address that?
I don't know, everything seems to go to the Senate and dies. So
Including Lindsey Graham.
I'm just explaining to all of you, we got a problem in the Senate. And I'm not politicizing, I'm telling you now. In the past, I have Republican friends. They are like, we don't get it, because we used to be able to pass things that are bipartisan, and if it got to there was at least a hearing, at least some sort of engagement or conversation about it. It's not happening at all. It's dead on arrival. So I don't know how to explain it. I can't
Well, I think with regard to Armenia, I'm getting the feeling now that Turkey is the new Russia.
Yeah, I don't know.
In
It's
Trump's
Russia,
brain.
it's Israel, it's Turkey, it's
Yeah,
Saudi Arabia.
yeah, it's like the.
Saudi Arabia. So it's all of those countries, yes.
I have two questions. First of all, these bills are waiting in the Senate. Do you think the next administration, hopefully, will pass these bills that are waiting at the Senate? The many bills that you were passing?